So far through the lessons, we've worked with a lot of different data. We've worked with variables, we've worked with arrays, we've worked with getting the post information submitted from a form. And so now what I'm going to work with is permanently storing our data somewhere. And I've got a couple different options. I can store things on a user's computer, I can store things in a text file, I can also store things in a database, and that is the most robust solution. And usually when people learn PHP, they usually will learn, and it kind of goes hand in hand, the MySQL database. And this series isn't necessarily to teach you how to use the MySQL database. We are going to look at it a little bit. We're going to create a user and we're going to kind of look at the structure just a little bit. But what we will do is we're going to go ahead and start developing pages that link to the database so that we can create tables. We can also add user information in there and be able to retrieve that same information. And so we're going to start working with databases now in this series. And so when we installed in Lesson 1 and in Lesson 2 our LAMP or WAMP servers, we also had the graphical front-end interface that we installed, and that's going to be called PHP-MyAdmin. And if I just type in localhost and then /PHP-MyAdmin and I hit enter, that'll take us to the graphical front-end of our database. Now PHP-MyAdmin is a separate application, but what it does is it ties into our database system and provides us that wonderful front end that we can use to work with our database. If you look here, I'm going to highlight, this is the username that's by default within our system. It's called root, and same thing goes for the Linux system. It's root by default. And what I want to work with is I'm going to actually create a new user rather than working with root for when I actually set up my passwords and my connection to the actual database system itself. So I will be doing that here shortly, but I want to point out also the fact that here on the left hand side are the databases that we have in our system itself. I've got 4 of them by default here. If I were to click on the test database, you can see that I've gone from localhost now to the test database. Within a database we have tables that we can work with. I can create a new table. Within the tables are going to be our records, which are going to be things like, first name, last name, and all that information that we would keep in a database system. So that's going to be stored in tables. I'm going to go ahead and go back. If you ever get lost in what screen you're on, you can always use these breadcrumb links that are up here at the top and click back on the localhost, and that will take you back to the very beginning, and we can go ahead and work from there. Now I did say that I want to create a new user to work with from the future lessons here within the PHP series. So I'm going to go ahead and just come up here to privileges, and rather than using the root user like we would normally use here on this setup, I'm going to go ahead and create a new user to work with and a new password to work with, because the text that we type in here is going to be easy to be seen within our code, and you'll see that when we start working on the next lesson. But let's go ahead and just do I'm going to add a new user, and I can go ahead and give it a username. And so let's just go ahead and I'll give it my first name. The host, I want to choose localhost since so local, and it fills in localhost for us. That's going to give me the ability to log in here using the localhost up here at the top for my page. Password I can go ahead and set, and I'm going to use a real simple one of just the word password. And then scroll down here a little bit further. I don't need to worry about the databases for the user. I will check all for my privileges, because I want to make sure that this user has all privileges for everything for this series. However, I could start narrowing them down to the actual privileges that I wanted. If you're familiar with databases and you're familiar with MySQL, then you can go through and select the things that you actually wanted to give permissions to. And I'm just going to go scroll down here and click on Create User. And it says that I've added the new user. So I've got a new user named Matt that's going to use the local host for accessing the host information. I do have a password on this account. You can see that on my root user I did not have a password. I could also edit their privileges and change the password if I wanted to use that in my videos. However, we're going to focus just on the new account that I created. So in this video we just took a quick look at PHP-MyAdmin. I created myself a new user, and in the next video we're going to start looking at how to make a connection from the PHP page itself to work with our database system in MySQL.